The text came at 2 in the morning. I wasn't supposed to see it. Anastasia thought I was asleep, thought the whiskey had done its job like it usually did. But I'd been awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathing change rhythm every time her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She grabbed it fast, too fast. The blue light illuminated her face as she typed, and I watched through slitted eyes as she smiled. Not the smile she gave me anymore. This one was different. Hungry. "Who's that?" I asked. She flinched. Actually flinched. "Just work," she said, setting the phone face down. "Go back to sleep." At 2 a.m.? Conference in Tokyo. Time zones, Nicholas. You wouldn't understand. That last part stung because she knew it would. I ran a small consulting firm. She worked for a hedge fund, pulled in 3 times my salary, and never let me forget it. I turned over, pretended to sleep, and started counting. Counting the lies, counting the nights she came home late smelling like expensive cologne that wasn't mine, counting the networking trips that lasted entire weekends. 3 weeks later, I had my answer. We were having dinner at some overpriced restaurant downtown, the kind with tiny portions and waiters who described food like they were auctioning art. Anastasia was on her phone again, typing furiously. "You know," I said, cutting into something that might have been duck. "We haven't had a real conversation in months." She looked up, annoyed. "I'm working." "You're always working. Someone has to pay for this lifestyle." She gestured at the restaurant, at her dress, at everything. "Your little consulting thing isn't exactly keeping us afloat." I set down my fork carefully. Very carefully. "My little consulting thing paid for the down payment on our apartment." 5 years ago, Nicholas. What have you done lately?" The waiter appeared, asking about dessert. Anastasia ordered without looking at the menu. I ordered nothing, just sat there watching my wife transform into someone I didn't recognize. "I'm going to Boston next weekend," she said, signing the check without showing me the total. "Networking event." "Another one?" "It's called Building a Career. You should try it." I smiled. It felt like broken glass in my mouth. "Who's going to be there?" "Colleagues, industry people." She stood, grabbed her purse. "I'll be back Sunday night." That's when I said it. The thing that changed everything. "Marriage doesn't mean you're my only priority anymore." She stopped, turned. For just a second, I saw something flicker across her face. Fear, maybe. Or recognition that she'd pushed too far. Then she shrugged. "Good. At least you're being honest." I stood up too, dropped my napkin on the table. "So do I." Her eyebrows rose. "What?" "Have other priorities. You're not mine either, not anymore." I walked out first. It was petty, but it felt good. Left her standing there in her expensive dress, probably wondering what I meant. I meant everything. That night, I made a call. Callie Henderson had been my college roommate, the brilliant tech genius who'd gone into corporate security before pivoting to private investigation. We'd stayed friends over the years, grabbing drinks every few months, trading war stories about difficult clients and impossible deadlines. "Nicholas," she said, answering on the second ring. "It's midnight. Someone better be dead. I need your help." Silence. Then, "What kind of help?" "The kind where I don't ask how you do it and you don't tell me I'm making a mistake." "Jesus." I heard her sit up, heard bedsheets rustling. "What happened?" "Anastasia's cheating on me." "You sure?" "No. That's why I need you." She sighed. "This is going to cost you." "I don't care. I mean friendship cost. Once we go down this road, Nicholas, you can't unknow what I find." I stared at my reflection in the darkened window of my study. 38 years old, graying at the temples, looking a decade older than I should. When had that happened? "Find it," I said. "Find everything." Callie started with the basics. Bank statements first, looking for unusual transactions. Hotel charges, restaurant bills, anything that didn't match Anastasia's supposed schedule. Then social media, The stuff that people think they've hidden with privacy settings but really hasn't hidden at all. She called me 3 days later. "You sitting down?" she asked. "Tell me." "His name's Zachary. Zachary Bennett. College boyfriend, apparently. They reconnected at a reunion 6 months ago." 6 months. I'd been living with this for 6 months without knowing. "You sure it's physical?" I asked, hating how desperate I sounded. "Nicholas." Callie's voice went soft. "I'm going to email you some screenshots. Don't open them if you want plausible deniability. But if you want the truth..." I opened them. The messages were explicit. Graphic, actually. Times, places, descriptions of what they'd done and what they wanted to do next. The Boston trip wasn't about networking. It was about a hotel suite at the Four Seasons, the one with the king bed and the view of the harbor. There were photos, too. Not nudes, thankfully, but close enough. Anastasia, in a red dress I'd never seen before, leaning against Zachary at some bar, his hand on her waist, her head on his shoulder, both of them smiling like they'd invented happiness. The last screenshot was a flight confirmation, 2 tickets to Miami, leaving Friday afternoon. The same Friday Anastasia had told me she'd be in Boston. I sat there for a long time staring at the screen until my eyes burned. Then I made my first move. I called our lawyer. Thomas Garrett had handled our prenup, back when Anastasia had insisted we get one despite my protests. Now I was grateful. "I need to update my will," I said. "Any particular reason?" Thomas asked. "Just want to make sure everything's current." "Anastasia still the primary beneficiary?" "Actually, no. Change it to my sister. All of it. Everything." Thomas paused. "You want to tell me what's going on?" "Not yet, but I will." Next, I called my bank, opened a separate account, started quietly moving money. Not much, just enough that it wouldn't trigger alerts. Emergency fund, I told myself. Insurance. Then I went through our apartment like a detective, found receipts she'd hidden, a second phone she thought I didn't know about, lingerie I'd never seen her wear. Each discovery was a knife, but I cataloged them all, took photos, documented everything. By the time Anastasia got home that night, I'd transformed. On the outside, I was the same Nicholas. Made dinner, asked about her day, pretended to care about the office politics she described. Inside, I was someone else entirely. "So, Boston," I said, serving pasta. "When are you leaving?" "Friday afternoon, 3 o'clock flight." 3 o'clock, I repeated. "Logan Airport?" She looked at me sharply. "Yeah, why?" "Just curious. Want to make sure I know where you are, in case of emergencies." "There won't be any emergencies, Nicholas. It's 2 days." I smiled. "Of course, 2 days. You'll be back Sunday night." "Right. From Boston." "Yes, from Boston. Are you feeling okay?" "Never better," I said, and meant it. That night, while she showered, I went through her phone. Not the obvious one she left lying around. The burner, the one she kept in her makeup bag, wrapped in a scarf like I wouldn't notice the extra bulk. The messages were worse than I'd imagined. Zachary. "Can't wait for Miami. 2 days of just us." Anastasia. "I told Nicholas I'm in Boston. He bought it completely." Zachary. "He always does. God, how did you end up with such a loser?" Anastasia. "Money was good at first. Now? I don't know. Might be time to upgrade." Zachary. "Leave him. We'll figure it out." Anastasia. "After Miami. Let's see how the weekend goes first." I took screenshots, sent them to myself, deleted the evidence, put the phone back exactly where I'd found it. When Anastasia emerged from the bathroom, smelling like lavender and lies, I was already in bed, book open, playing the part perfectly. "Good night," she said, kissing my forehead like I was a child. "Good night," I replied. "Have fun in Boston," she smiled. "I will." I waited until her breathing deepened, until I was sure she was asleep. Then I picked up my own phone and texted Callie. Me. Miami. Friday, 4 seasons. I need everything you can get on Zachary Bennett. Work, family, finances, every vulnerability. Callie. Jesus, Nicholas. Me. Can you do it or not? Callie. I'll have it by tomorrow, but Nick, be careful, whatever you're planning. Me. I'm not planning anything. Me. I'm just collecting information. That was a lie. I was planning everything. By Thursday, I had a complete dossier on Zachary Bennett. Age 39, divorced twice, worked in commercial real estate, drove a leased BMW, lived in a downtown loft that cost $4,000 a month. He had debt. Lots of it. Credit cards maxed out, a gambling problem he thought he'd hidden, and a reputation at work for cutting corners. He was, in other words, perfect. Friday morning, I kissed Anastasia goodbye, wished her luck in Boston, told her I loved her. She barely looked up from her phone. I waited exactly 30 minutes after she left. Then I called a car service, gave them an address in Miami, and booked the last seat on the 3:15 flight. Same flight as Anastasia. Same flight as Zachary. Different cabin. I wasn't confronting them yet. That would be stupid, impulsive, exactly what Anastasia would expect from good old, predictable Nicholas. No, I was just watching, learning, documenting. Callie had gotten me into their hotel reservation system. They'd booked the penthouse suite, ocean view, $2,800 a night, charged it to a credit card under Zachary's name, his maxed-out credit card. I booked a room 3 floors down, checked in an hour before they arrived, and waited. They came in laughing. Anastasia wore the red dress from the photos, the one I'd never seen. Zachary had his arm around her waist, hand drifting lower than appropriate for a public lobby. I watched from behind a newspaper, old-school spy movie style. Watched them kiss in the elevator. Watched Zachary grab her like he owned her. My wife. Still legally my wife. I gave them an hour to settle in. Then I made my first move. I called the hotel front desk, disguised my voice, claimed to be Zachary Bennett. I need to change the credit card on file, I said. The current one's going to decline. Use this one instead. I gave them a fake number, one that would decline. The front desk clerk assured me it was handled. Then I called the restaurant where they'd made reservations. Same story, same fake card number. By dinner time, they'd be embarrassed. By checkout, they'd be scrambling. Small moves, precise cuts. I watched them head out to dinner, dressed like they were attending the Oscars. Followed at a distance, took a seat at the bar where I could see their table. Anastasia ordered champagne. Zachary ordered lobster. They fed each other bites of food, laughing like teenagers. When the check came, I watched Zachary's face change. Watched him try the card again. Watched the waiter return, apologetic and firm. Anastasia's expression went from confusion to anger in seconds flat. "What do you mean it declined?" she hissed, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "I don't know," Zachary said, pulling out another card. "This one should work." It didn't. Neither did the third one. Finally, Anastasia threw down her own card, the corporate one she wasn't supposed to use for personal expenses. They left the restaurant in silence, the fairy tale fractured. I finished my drink, left cash on the bar, and headed back to my room. Tomorrow I'd escalate. Tomorrow they'd start understanding what it meant to cross Nicholas Carter. Saturday morning, I woke at dawn, ran 5 miles on the beach, cleared my head, planned my next moves. By the time I got back to the hotel, I'd transformed into someone Anastasia wouldn't recognize. Ball cap pulled low, sunglasses, different clothes, generic tourist, invisible. They spent the morning by the pool. I watched from the bar, documenting everything. The way Zachary ordered drinks like he owned the resort. The way Anastasia laughed at his jokes, touching his chest, his arm, his thigh. I took photos, lots of them. Around noon, they went back to their room. I gave them privacy for what I knew was happening, used the time to make calls. First call, Anastasia's best friend, Jennifer. We'd always had a cordial relationship, dinner parties and birthday drinks. Nicholas, she said, surprised. Shouldn't you be, I don't know, working? I am working, I said. Listen, I need advice. It's about Anastasia. What about her? Have you noticed her acting different lately? Distant? Jennifer hesitated. That pause told me everything. She's been stressed, Jennifer said finally. Work stuff. Right. Work stuff. In Boston this weekend, right? I think so. She mentioned something about that. Funny, I said. I could have sworn she said Miami. Silence. Jennifer, if you know something, I don't, she said quickly. Too quickly. I really don't. But you suspect something. Nicholas, I can't. This is between you two. It was, I agreed. Now it's bigger. Thanks, Jennifer. I hung up before she could respond. Second call, Zachary's office. I claimed to be from a professional organization, verifying employment for an award nomination. Oh, Zachary, the receptionist said, her tone shifting. Yeah, he works here. Senior associate. Good employee? She laughed. That's not really my place to say. Off the record? Off the record? He's barely hanging on. Missed quotas 3 quarters in a row, pisses off clients, spends half his time on personal calls. Between us, he's probably got 6 months before they cut him loose. Interesting, I said. Very interesting. Third call, property management company. Using Zachary's information from Callie's research, I called his landlord, again disguising my voice. I'm calling about the loft on 5th Street, I said. I'm considering the unit, wanted to know about the current tenant. Zachary Bennett? He's month to month right now. Rent's always late, couple noise complaints. Honestly, I'd be happy to see him go. That flexible, huh? Real flexible. You interested? Maybe, I said. I'll be in touch. I had what I needed. Zachary's job was shaky, his housing unstable, his finances a disaster. He was one strong wind away from falling apart. I was about to become a hurricane. They left the hotel around 3, headed to some upscale shopping district. I followed in a cab, stayed back, watched them window shop like normal couples did. Zachary tried buying her a necklace. Card declined. Tried again at another store. Declined. Anastasia was getting irritated. I could see it in her body language, the way she pulled away from him, checked her phone, frowned. They ended up at a bar, drinking expensive cocktails that Anastasia paid for. I sat at the other end, nursing a beer, listening. I don't understand, Zachary was saying. My credit's been fine. Maybe you should check your accounts, Anastasia said. I did. Everything looks normal. Then why are all your cards declining? I don't know, babe. Maybe fraud? She softened slightly. You should call the bank. He did. Right there, on speaker. I had to suppress a smile as the automated system informed him his accounts were frozen pending fraud investigation. Fraud investigation I'd reported that morning, using just enough of his information to trigger alarms. This is ridiculous, he said, hanging up. I'll fix it Monday. You better, Anastasia said. This is embarrassing. They fought about it the rest of the afternoon. Small jabs at first, then escalating. Money problems exposed every fault line in a relationship, turned partners into enemies. By dinner, they were barely speaking. I headed back to my hotel, ordered room service, made more calls. Callie answered on the first ring. Tell me you're not doing anything illegal. Define illegal. Nicholas. I reported legitimate fraud concerns, called in noise complaints that other tenants probably had anyway, made some inquiries about employment verification. Nothing illegal, Callie, just information. She sighed. You're playing with fire. Good. Let it burn. What's the endgame here? I thought about Anastasia's messages, about Zachary calling me a loser, about months of lies and contempt. Complete destruction, I said. Social, financial, psychological. I want them to understand what they've done. And then what? You take her back? I laughed. Bitter sound, sharp edges. God, no. Then I walk away and let them have each other. Let them live in the rubble. That's dark, Nick. They made it dark. Sunday morning, checkout day. I positioned myself in the lobby, watched them approach the front desk. The manager intercepted them, professional smile, bad news. Mr. Bennett, there's an issue with your credit card. The charges didn't process. We'll need alternative payment. Zachary's face went red. I changed the card on file. Yes, sir, but that card also declined. We'll need payment before you can check out. Anastasia stepped forward. How much? With room, dining, incidentals, $4,800. I watched her face go pale. Watched her fumble for her corporate card, the one she definitely wasn't supposed to use for personal expenses. The manager processed it, handed over receipts, thanked them for staying. They left without speaking, dragging luggage like prisoners dragging chains. I waited 10 minutes, checked out of my own room, headed to the airport. Different flight this time. Earlier. I'd be home before them, unpacking, acting like I'd spent the whole weekend alone. Perfect alibi. But I wasn't done yet. Not even close. On the plane, I drafted an email. Careful, anonymous, sent from a throwaway account Callie had set up. 2. Jennifer.morrison@email.com, Sarah.chenwemail.com, Rebecca.torres@email.com. Subject: Thought you should know. Body: Saw Anastasia Carter in Miami this weekend. She was with a man who definitely wasn't her husband. Seemed pretty cozy at the Four Seasons. Just thought her friends should be aware. Attached, 3 photos. Anastasia and Zachary at dinner. Anastasia and Zachary by the pool. Anastasia and Zachary kissing in the lobby. I hit send before I could overthink it. Seeds planted. Now I'd water them. I got home at 8, ordered Thai food, put on a documentary, played the part of lonely husband perfectly. Anastasia texted at 9. Landing in 30. See you soon. I responded, Safe travels. Love you. She walked in at 10:30, dragging her suitcase, looking exhausted. How was Boston? I asked. Fine, productive, lots of networking. Good. You hungry? I have leftover pad thai. I ate on the plane. She headed straight for the bedroom. I'm going to shower and crash. Sure. Hey, how was the hotel? She froze, just for a second. What? The hotel in Boston? Was it nice? Oh, yeah. Marriott, you know, standard business hotel. Cool, I said. Sleep well. I waited until the shower was running. Then I grabbed her phone, the burner one, scrolled through messages. Zachary. That was a disaster. Anastasia. I know. I can't believe your cards failed. Zachary. Something's wrong. I'm checking my accounts tomorrow. Anastasia. Please do. That was humiliating. Zachary. At least we had the weekend. You're worth it. Anastasia. Am I? Starting to wonder. Zachary. Babe, don't say that. Anastasia. I dropped 5,000 on your screw-up. I need to know this is going somewhere. Zachary. It is, I promise. We'll figure out the Nicholas situation soon. My hands shook as I took screenshots. The Nicholas situation. Like I was a problem to be solved, an obstacle to root around. I put the phone back, sat in the dark living room, breathed through the rage. Phase 1 was complete. I'd embarrassed them, exposed cracks, planted doubts. Phase 2 would be worse. Monday morning, Anastasia left for work early, avoiding conversation. I waited until 9, then called her office. Hi, I'm following up on expense reports, I said, using my professional voice. Can I verify some charges with Anastasia Carter? Sure, one moment. I was transferred to accounting. Pleasant woman named Dorothy who probably hated her job. I'm seeing a charge for $4,800 at a Miami hotel, I said. That seems unusual for a Boston conference. Silence. Then typing. I don't see any Boston conference approved for last weekend, Dorothy said slowly. That's odd. She definitely traveled. Can you look into that? I'll need to flag this for review. Great, I said. Thanks for your help. I hung up, imagined Anastasia getting called into HR, scrambling for explanations. Next, I drove to Zachary's office building. Didn't go in, just waited in the parking garage, watching. He arrived at 9:30, looking rough, unshaven, rumpled suit, walked like every step hurt. I followed him inside, took the elevator up one floor below his, climbed the stairs, positioned myself where I could see his desk through the glass walls. He spent the morning on his phone, clearly arguing with his bank. At one point, he threw his phone on the desk, put his head in his hands. His boss walked by, stopped, said something that made Zachary sit up straight, nod vigorously. Not a good conversation. I left before anyone noticed me, went home, made more calls. Noise complaints to Zachary's landlord, this time more specific. Parties at 2 a.m., loud music, possible illegal activity. Anonymous tip to his employer about gambling debts, potential conflicts of interest. Message to his ex-wife's lawyer, suggesting they might want to revisit alimony given his recent financial instability. Each call was a thread pulled from his life, watching him unravel. That evening, Anastasia came home angry. "You'll never believe what happened," she said, throwing her bag on the couch. "What?" "HR flagged my expense report. Apparently someone called asking about Miami." I kept my expression neutral. "Miami? Weren't you in Boston?" "Yes, obviously. But someone reported seeing charges from Miami. It's insane." "That is weird. Identity theft, maybe?" "Maybe." She paced, agitated. "They're investigating. It's humiliating." "I'm sure you'll clear it up," I said. "You were definitely in Boston, right?" She looked at me sharply. "Of course." "Then you have nothing to worry about." That night Jennifer called me, not Anastasia, me. "Nicholas," she said, voice tight. "We need to talk." "About?" "I got an email, photos of Anastasia, in Miami, with some guy." "What?" I let shock color my voice. "Are you sure it's her?" "Positive. Nicholas, I'm so sorry. I didn't want to believe it, but—" "Can you forward me the email?" She did. I opened it, pretended to see the photos for the first time. "Jesus," I whispered. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet. I need to think. If you need anything—" "Thanks, Jennifer. I appreciate you telling me." I hung up, smiled in the darkness. The web was tightening. Anastasia's friends knew, her work knew. Soon, everyone would know. And then the real revenge would begin. Tuesday morning, I woke up with crystal clarity. No more background moves. It was time to go direct. I started with their little love nest. Callie had found it days ago, a short-term rental Zachary had leased under his business name. Probably thought he was being clever. Downtown loft, furnished, month to month. Their secret meeting place. I called the rental company, used Zachary's information. "Hi, I need to cancel the lease on the 5th Street property," I said. "You're canceling? Can I ask why?" "Financial reasons. Need to cut costs." "Okay, but you understand you forfeit the security deposit?" "That's fine. We'll need you to be out by Friday. Can you manage that?" "Absolutely." I hung up, then did something petty but satisfying. Listed the loft on every marketplace I could find. Facebook, Craigslist, OfferUp. Posted the address, added photos from the rental company's website, priced it at $1,500 below market value. Within an hour, I had 20 messages from interested renters. I ignored all of them. Wasn't actually renting it. Just wanted chaos. By noon, people were showing up at the loft, knocking on the door, peering through windows. The building manager called Zachary's phone 14 times, based on the call logs Callie was monitoring. Next target, social exposure. I created a burner social media account, made it look legitimate with a few generic posts and a stock photo profile picture. Then I found Anastasia's professional network page and started connecting with her colleagues. Once accepted, I posted, Interesting weekend in Miami. Sometimes what happens at the Four Seasons doesn't stay at the Four Seasons. Attached. A cropped photo of Anastasia and Zachary at dinner, faces clear, body language unmistakable. Tagged it with her company name. Within minutes, the comments started rolling in. User 1. Wait, is that Anastasia Carter? User 2. Who's the guy? That's not her husband. User 3. This is inappropriate to post publicly. User 4. Everyone already knew about this, surprised it took this long to go public. I deleted my account before anyone could trace it, but the screenshot had already been shared, forwarded, dissected. Digital wildfire. At 3 p.m., Zachary's car got towed from his office parking garage. I'd called the towing company that morning, reported an abandoned vehicle matching his description. At 4 p.m., his gym membership was canceled due to fraudulent payment information. At 5 p.m., every streaming service on his accounts locked him out for similar reasons. Small cuts. Death by 1,000 paper cuts. I was in the kitchen making coffee when Anastasia burst through the door at 6. Someone's sabotaging me, she said, voice shaking. I turned slowly. What do you mean? My colleagues saw photos. Someone posted photos of me in Miami. They're asking questions, Nicholas. Everyone's asking questions. Photos from Boston? She glared. Stop it. You know I wasn't in Boston. There it was. The truth, finally naked between us. I set down my coffee mug very carefully. I know. You know what? That you're cheating on me, with Zachary Bennett. That you've been lying for months. That you went to Miami last weekend and charged it to your corporate card. Yeah, Anastasia. I know. She went pale. How? Does it matter? You did it. You betrayed me, lied to my face, called me a loser to your boyfriend. I kept my voice level, cold. The only question now is what happens next. Nicholas, I can explain. No, I interrupted. You can't. There's no explanation that makes this okay. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to move out. This week. Take whatever you want, I don't care. The apartment's in my name anyway. The lease, the utilities, everything. You can't kick me out. Watch me. I've already contacted a lawyer. We're getting divorced. Given the evidence, the prenup stands. You get nothing except what you brought into the marriage. Her eyes widened. Evidence? I pulled out my phone, showed her the screenshots. Messages, photos, bank records, everything. You went through my phone? Your burner phone, the one you hid. Poor operational security, by the way. She stared at the screen, face cycling through emotions. Shock, anger, fear. Zachary's got his own problems. Check with him lately? How's his housing situation? His job? His credit? Understanding dawned slowly. You did all of this. I made some calls, asked some questions. Turns out Zachary's life is a house of cards, and I just started blowing. She lunged forward, grabbed my phone. I let her take it. I had backups everywhere. You're insane, she said. No, I'm done, there's a difference. She threw the phone at the wall. It shattered, pieces scattering across the floor. I just looked at her. That was childish. I'm not leaving. Then I'll leave. Either way, we're finished. I grabbed my jacket. You have until Friday to pack your stuff. After that, locks get changed. Where are you going? Hotel? Maybe I'll try the Four Seasons. Here it's nice. I left her standing there, went to my car, drove away. Didn't go to a hotel. Went to Callie's office instead. She took one look at me and poured whiskey. So you told her, she said. Yeah. How'd she take it? Threw my phone at a wall. Classy. Callie sat across from me. What now? Now we escalate. I want them at the airport. Their next trip. They have one planned? Not yet. But they will. Anastasia's going to run to Zachary, tell him everything. He'll convince her to run away somewhere, reset, figure things out. They're predictable. And when they do? We'll be waiting. It took 3 days. 3 days of Anastasia staying at Jennifer's place, 3 days of angry voicemails I didn't listen to, 3 days of monitoring their messages through Callie's software. Finally, Thursday night. Zachary. Let's go to Vegas, this weekend. Get away from everything. Anastasia. Can you afford it? Zachary. I'll figure it out. We need this, babe. Need to reconnect. Anastasia. Okay, Friday afternoon flight? Zachary. I'll book it now. Friday morning I was at the airport by 10. Their flight left at 2. I had 4 hours to prepare. I positioned myself near their gate, different disguise this time. Business traveler, suit and tie, laptop open, AirPods in. They arrived at 1:30, cutting it close. Anastasia looked rough, dark circles under her eyes, expensive clothes wrinkled, carrying herself like someone defeated. Zachary looked worse. He'd lost weight, face haggard, that cocky swagger completely gone. They checked in, got boarding passes, headed for security. I waited until they cleared, then approached the gate agent. Excuse me, I said, showing identification. I need to report suspicious activity regarding 2 passengers on this flight. The agent's expression shifted. What kind of activity? Possible fraud, credit card irregularities, false documentation. Passengers Anastasia Carter and Zachary Bennett. I'm not saying cancel their tickets, but maybe additional screening? The agent made notes. We'll look into it. Thank you. Additional screening meant delays, meant questioning, meant embarrassment. I watched from a distance as security pulled them aside, asked questions, went through their bags. Zachary got angry, raised his voice. Bad move. That earned him more attention, more delays. Anastasia just stood there, defeated. They missed their flight. I approached while they were at the customer service desk, arguing about rebooking. Anastasia, I said quietly. She spun around. What the hell are you doing here? Same thing as you, traveling. You're following us. The airport's public space. I'm allowed to be here. Zachary stepped forward, chest puffed out. You need to back off, man. I looked at him. Really looked at him. 6'2", maybe 200 pounds. Thought his size intimidated people. Or what? I asked calmly. Or I'll make you back off. The customer service agent intervened. Gentlemen, please. We don't allow threats in the terminal. I smiled. I'm not threatening anyone. Just trying to have a conversation with my wife. Soon-to-be ex-wife, Anastasia said. Still legally married, though, which makes this interesting. I turned to Zachary. Did you know she's still on my health insurance? My life insurance? That legally, I can make medical decisions for her if something happens? Zachary's face went red. You're a psychopath. No, I'm thorough. There's a difference. I looked at the gate agent. Were you able to rebook them? Sir, I can't discuss other passengers' reservations. Of course. Privacy. I understand. I looked back at Anastasia. Have a good trip, wherever you end up going. Zachary lunged forward, actually lunged like he was going to hit me. I stepped back. Airport security was there in seconds, grabbing Zachary, pulling him away. He threatened me, Zachary shouted. He's harassing us. Sir, you initiated physical contact, the security officer said. We're going to need you to calm down. I showed my phone to another officer. I have video if you need it. Started recording when he got aggressive. The officer reviewed the footage, nodded. Sir, you and your companion need to come with us. They escorted Zachary and Anastasia away. Not arrested, just detained. Questions, paperwork, delays. Their Vegas trip was done. I walked away, caught my own flight to Chicago. Business meeting I'd scheduled, legitimate reason to be at the airport. Perfect alibi. That night, Zachary made his mistake. The big one. He drove to my apartment building. Drunk, based on the security footage Callie pulled. Started pounding on the door, screaming, Come out here, Nicholas. Face me like a man. I wasn't there. Was in Chicago, at a hotel, with time-stamped receipts and witnesses. But my neighbors were there. They called the cops. Zachary got arrested for drunk and disorderly conduct, trespassing, terroristic threats. Spent the night in jail. His employer found out. He was suspended pending investigation. His landlord found out. He was evicted. His ex-wife's lawyer found out. They reopened alimony negotiations. Everything collapsed at once, and I'd barely touched him. When I stepped off the train Sunday afternoon, I felt a pulse of relief until I saw my building manager waiting in the lobby. His face was tight, professional, like he didn't want to be there. "Mr. Carter, we need to discuss Friday night's incident," he said, folding his hands in front of him. I unfolded my coat and met his eyes. "The man who tried to break down my door? Yeah, I heard about that. I was in Chicago." My voice was steady, but my heart thumped at the reminder that I still wasn't home free. He adjusted his tie. "We're adding extra security cameras and upgraded locks next week. I also wanted to let you know. Your wife came by Saturday morning asking for entry. We followed your instructions and denied her request." "Good," I said, exhaling. I kept my tone flat, but inside, I felt a flicker of satisfaction. The world was finally listening to my side of things. He hesitated, shifting his weight. "She was upset, made a scene in the lobby, claimed you're harassing her, sabotaging her life." I nodded. "She can say whatever she wants. I've got attorneys ready if she tries to make it stick. Everything I'm doing is legal." He glanced around, then lowered his voice. "Understood. I just wanted you aware." I thanked him and rode the elevator up to my apartment, the doors sliding open onto a quiet hallway. Inside, the place looked exactly as I'd left it, familiar and untouched. New deadbolts glinted at the edge of the doorframe. My sanctuary felt secure again. I poured 2 fingers of bourbon into a glass, sat by the window, and watched cars inch through downtown traffic. The amber liquid warmed my chest as I replayed the manager's words. Sabotage, harassment. Legal, yes, but still heavy words. At 9, my phone buzzed. Callie's name lit up the screen. I answered before it even rang through. "He's out on bail," she said without greeting. Zachary's brother posted it, but Nick, he's unraveling. His messages to Anastasia are getting dark. "How dark?" I pressed, folding the edge of my shirt between thumb and forefinger. "Talking about violence, blaming you for everything, says he wants to make you pay." I took a slow sip of bourbon, letting the burn settle. "Let him talk. Words don't hurt unless you let them. He's unstable. You've got to watch yourself." "I'm always careful. What about Anastasia?" "She's still crashing at Jennifer's place. HR's investigating her Miami expense reports. Might face termination or demotion." "Good." I tapped my glass on the windowsill. "She'll learn." "You hate her, don't you?" Callie asked softly. I paused, thinking of the sleepless nights, the betrayal, the cold realization that I'd been living a lie. "I hate what she did," I corrected. "Not her as a person. The contempt, the lies, the idea that she could humiliate me and just walk away." "This is your justice," she said. "Exactly." I closed my eyes. Tonight I sleep easy, knowing balance is returning. Monday morning, I focused on Zachary's car, a leased BMW he'd bragged about for years, his trophy of success. Callie had forwarded me his VIN and login codes, strictly legal access to his remote account for dealership notifications. That was enough. I settled at my desk, pulled up the car's software interface, and studied the system. Modern vehicles ran on complex electronics, and updates could be scheduled remotely. I booked a routine security patch for Tuesday at 8 a.m., just before his meeting about that budget suspension he'd been dreading. Tuesday, just as predicted, his car died at a red light downtown. No warning lights, no sputter, just silence. Drivers behind him blared horns. He popped the hood, fiddled with the fuses, cursed under his breath. It took a tow truck an hour to arrive. By then, he'd missed the meeting and any hope of fixing his reputation. I heard about it third hand from a mutual acquaintance at work. Strike one for him. I poured another bourbon, raised my glass to the empty room, and felt a grim sense of accomplishment. That afternoon, I drove to Anastasia's office building. The parking garage smelled of oil and damp concrete. She emerged at 5:30, head down, clutching her worn-out heel in one hand and a crumpled suit jacket draped over her arm. I pulled up next to her. "Need a ride?" I called through the passenger window. She jolted and glared. "What are you doing here?" "I want 5 minutes," I said, unlocking my door. "Real talk, not our usual shouting matches." She hesitated, eyes flickering between my face and the empty street. Finally, she slid in, leaving just enough space to make her feel ready to bolt. I drove to a quiet overlook along the river. The skyline glowed in the distance. I killed the engine and turned to her. "Why him?" I asked. "That's all I need to know. Why choose Zachary?" She stared out the windshield. "He made me feel alive." Her voice was low, tired. "And I didn't?" I whispered. "You made me feel safe, but safe isn't the same as alive," she snapped, turning to face me. Tears glistened in her eyes. Every day was routine. You and we were stuck in the same pattern. "I gave you stability," I said, voice cracking slightly. "A home. A life built on trust." She shook her head, shoulders trembling. That wasn't enough. "So you destroyed our marriage because you were bored?" She gripped the dashboard. I was dying inside. I inhaled, recalling her warm laughter on our wedding day, how she comforted me after my father's funeral. "That woman's gone," I said softly, "and that loss hurt me more than your betrayal." She wiped her cheeks. "What now? Will you keep punishing us?" I swallowed, looking at her face illuminated by streetlight. "Until you understand consequences," I said. "Until you both face your choices." Her lip trembled. "That's insane." "Maybe," I admitted. "But it's honest." I drove her back, parked by a street lamp, and didn't say goodbye. She slipped out without a word and disappeared into the dark. That night, Zachary crossed another line. He posted a drunk rant on his public feed, naming me and accusing me of stalking, sabotage, harassment. I took screenshots and sent them to my lawyer. "Defamation?" Thomas asked when I called. "Possibly," I said. "At minimum, it shows his instability." "He's your ex's ex," Thomas said. "How much farther will you go?" I paused, thinking of everything they'd taken from me. "Until they learn not to mess with someone who fights back." He sighed. "Be careful, Nicholas. Revenge can become its own prison." "I'm not trapped," I replied. "I'm focused." Wednesday morning, word reached me that Anastasia was fired, not for the Miami expenses, they lacked proof of intent, but for a pattern of poor judgment. Years of professional credibility evaporated in a single HR decision. Her call came late that afternoon. She sobbed, voice cracking. "Are you happy now?" I closed my laptop. "Not happy," I said honestly. "Satisfied." "Satisfied?" she repeated, bewildered. "Happiness suggests I enjoyed this," I explained. "I didn't. But seeing you face real consequences for choices you made knowingly satisfies me." "I hate you," she whispered. "Good," I said. "Now you know what I felt." Thursday, I sent Zachary a gift basket to the cheap apartment where he'd been crashing. Inside, decent whiskey, gourmet jerky, a card that read, "Thinking of you during this difficult time, a friend." His brother posted a thank you online. Zachary knew the sender. I watched him spiral further. Friday night, I was at a bar across town with a college friend. He pointed out Zachary stumbling in, red-eyed, jittery, ordering shots. I watched him down glass after glass, muttering to himself. He spotted me at the bar, froze, and then marched over. "You win," he slurred. "You destroyed me." I took a slow sip of my drink. "You destroyed yourself. I just sped it up." "What more do you want from me?" he asked, reeking of defeat. Nothing, I said. You're already done. He swung at me, poorly aimed and sloppy. I sidestepped, letting him crash into a nearby table. Plates shattered. Security grabbed him and dragged him out. I stayed to finish my whiskey, listened to the afternoon's riff of jazz, and then left. Back in my apartment, I set the glass down and stared at the ceiling. The end game was near. A final move, a last confrontation. Then it would all be over. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday morning, wedged between a stack of bills and my half-read mail. I froze when I saw the weight of the envelope in my hand, thick, ivory cardstock with raised black lettering that shimmered in the light. The return address was from Jennifer Wilcox. I set down my coffee, tore it open, and pulled out the folded card. 3 weeks away. Downtown hotel ballroom, black tie, Jennifer's wedding, and Anastasia would stand at the front as maid of honor. My breath hitched. I turned the card over and over, tracing the edge of the paper with my fingertip. I felt a rush of adrenaline, like the moment before a sprint. I shoved the invitation into my pocket, grabbed my phone, and dialed Callie's number on the first ring. She answered on the second. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I got an invitation to Jennifer's wedding, +1. There was a pause. Then she said, "You're kidding." I leaned against the kitchen counter. "Not kidding. I'm going." She exhaled loudly. "Nicholas, that's a terrible idea." I laughed softly. "I'm not going to start a fight. I'm just going as a guest." She didn't believe me. "Jennifer's her friend, not yours." I shrugged, even though she couldn't see me. "She invited me specifically. She feels guilty that she knew about everything and kept it quiet." Callie sounded skeptical. "So now you're using her guilt?" I shook my head. "I'm just accepting an invitation. That's it." Over the next 3 weeks, time seemed to slow. Every morning I woke at 6, hit the treadmill, and tried to sweat out the tension. My briefcase felt heavier than ever on the commute to the office, loaded with quiet dread and anticipation. I dove into work, strategy meetings, client calls, proposals due. It sunk my mind into spreadsheets and charts where revenge looked like an abstract concept, not a ticking deadline. In therapy, I admitted the plan. My therapist frowned. "This fixation on revenge," she said, "is a way to avoid grieving. You're putting off real loss until this is over." I nodded but didn't argue. Grief could wait. I needed to see this through. Meanwhile, whispers filtered back about Anastasia and Zachary. She'd moved into a tiny studio in a rundown part of town, broken buzzer, flickering hallway lights, rusty fire escape out back. She'd taken a junior analyst role at some boutique consulting shop, making half of what she used to. Photos on social media showed her alone at a cramped desk, no wedding band on her finger. Zachary was worse. No apartment, sleeping in his car some nights, on his brother's couch others. He'd taken random construction gigs, trying to keep a roof over his head. They were still clinging to each other, bound by their ruined lives. Good. Finally, wedding day arrived bright and cold. November wind rattled the windows of my apartment building as Callie pulled up outside in her car. She stepped out in a navy evening gown, hair pinned into soft waves. I checked my reflection in the car window, slicked hair, dark suit tailored to fit me perfectly. I reached for the door handle. "Ready?" she asked, eyes bright. I nodded. "Beyond ready." Inside the hotel lobby, marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers. Polished brass railings led up to sweeping staircases draped in red carpet. The air smelled faintly of orchids and fresh polish. A string quartet played something soft and classical. Everywhere I looked, there were perfectly dressed people, women in gowns, men in tuxedos, smiling and clinking champagne flutes. It was exactly the kind of place Anastasia had loved, back when money and status still mattered to her. We checked in at the reception desk, slid our names across the host's palm, and followed a small army of guests into the cocktail lounge. I saw her at once, Anastasia leaning against the marble bar. Her burgundy dress, the official maid of honor color, clung to her frame in a way that made her look both gaunt and desperate. She'd lost weight. Her makeup sat heavy on her cheeks, as if it was trying to mask more than just a long night before. She caught my eye, her breath stopping mid-swallow like she'd forgotten how to breathe. Jennifer appeared then, bright and effusive. She wrapped me in a hug. "Nicholas, thank you so much for coming," she said. Her pearls chinked softly against her dress. "Wouldn't miss it," I replied. "Congratulations." She glanced over my shoulder at Anastasia and frowned. "I know things are complicated," she said quietly. I smiled, resting a hand on her arm. "Tonight's about you, not them." Callie and I drifted into conversation with other guests, queries about my work, compliments on her dress, polite laughs at stories we'd heard a dozen times. At first I felt on edge, wondering if every passerby recognized me as the scorned ex. But their smiles were genuine, their interest casual. I sipped bourbon on the rocks and let myself relax into the role of perfect wedding guest. About 20 minutes into the ceremony, Zachary stumbled through the doors. His suit jacket was clearly borrowed, shoulders drooping, sleeves too long. He made a beeline for the bar, where he ordered whiskey neat and downed it in a few sharp gulps. His face looked 10 years older, eyes hollow and haunted. The officiant's voice echoed through the room as Jennifer and Mark exchanged vows. Jennifer's eyes glistened with tears, Mark's voice cracked at her name. Everyone clapped when it was done, and the crowd drifted into the reception hall. The band struck up a slow, jazzy tune. Anastasia stood to give her speech. She cleared her throat into the microphone and spoke of love as a gift you nurture, of commitment as the foundation for your dreams. Her words were polished, elegant, and completely hollow coming from her. I caught her eye at the end, raised my glass in a quiet toast, and held it for a moment before lowering. Her face drained of color, and her hand trembled. Dinner arrived: seared salmon, lemon risotto, green beans almondine. I chatted with my table mates about travel plans and weekend projects, laughed at their stories, and tried to make my eyes stay fixed on anything but her. The seconds ticked by like hours. During dessert, a rich chocolate torte, Zachary appeared at my side. He swayed in his shoes. "We need to talk," he said, voice low and urgent. I set my fork down. "No, we don't," I replied. His jaw clenched. "You've been terrorizing us for months, ruining our lives." I tilted my head. "I haven't broken any laws," I said calmly. "Your choices ruined your lives." He slammed a hand on the table. "Bullshit. You've been sabotaging—" I cut him off. "Prove it. File charges. Get a lawyer. I welcome the investigation." He stared at me, chest heaving, then lunged. He grabbed my lapels and shook me like a rag doll. I didn't resist. Security cameras gleamed from the ceiling as I whispered, "Go ahead. Take your shot." He let go with a frustrated grunt and staggered back, slipping against the wall until he sat on the floor. "My job," he rasped. "My home. My dignity." He closed his eyes, head bowed. I knelt in front of him. "You handed all of that away," I said softly. "I just made it visible." He looked up, tears in his eyes. Anastasia was mine. I stood, offering a hand to help him. "Anastasia was my wife," I said. "You were her midlife crisis." 2 guards appeared then, helping him to his feet and steering him toward the exit. I patted him on the shoulder. "He's fine," I told the nearest attendant. "He just needs fresh air." Moments later, I found Anastasia on a shadowed balcony. The city lights sprawled below us, traffic a river of headlights. She held a cigarette even though I'd seen her quit years ago. Smoke curled up around her face. She didn't look at me. "He's pathetic now," she said softly. "You made him pathetic." I leaned against the railing. "He did that himself," I replied. "I simply removed his masks." She inhaled, exhaled tremulously. "And me? What did you do to me?" I crossed my arms. "Held you accountable, something nobody else in your life ever did." She turned to face me, eyes glistening. "You proud of yourself?" Her voice cracked. I let the silence stretch. "I'm at peace," I said finally. "This is closure." She shook her head. Closure. Her cigarette. The divorce was finalized exactly 3 months later. The judge called our case, stamped the papers, and sent us back out into the hallway. It was clean, simple, exactly as the prenup dictated. No last-minute arguments, no protests, just signatures and a rubber stamp. I remember the faint hum of the fluorescent lights overhead, the scratch of pen on paper, and the way my fingers felt numb afterward, like I'd just pressed a nerve instead of an ink pen. Anastasia and I didn't speak on our way out. She tucked the envelope of documents under her arm and walked with a straight back, refusing to look at me. I glanced once at the crumpled form I held, our past marriage reduced to a few scrawled lines, and then folded the paper neatly into my briefcase. Outside, the courthouse doors clicked shut behind her, and for a moment, I stood in the cool spring air, feeling like I'd lost something irrevocable, even if it was the right thing to lose. Her portion of the settlement was exactly what she'd brought in: a small savings fund, the car she'd driven to our wedding, and a handful of personal keepsakes. I kept the condo, my business accounts, all the firms and investments built over 10 years of effort. The prenup acted like a surgeon's scalpel, precise, clinical, leaving only bloodless edges. I walked away with everything I'd earned, and she walked away with the rest. Neither of us seemed to notice how hollow it felt. Weeks later, I heard that Anastasia had taken a mid-level analyst position at a smaller consulting firm, half the salary she'd commanded before. She'd moved to a new city, someplace neither of us had ever visited, to start over with a cubicle and a desk lamp, fluorescent ceiling tiles above her head, and an inbox that never seemed to empty. I pictured her in a rushed morning routine, cheap cereal and sad coffee from a travel mug, scrolling through LinkedIn updates of people who looked happier, more successful, more sure. I imagined her walking home each evening to a small apartment, scented with cheap detergent and the barren echoes of a life untethered. Zachary vanished from every platform we once shared. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, he deleted them all. I only learned of his whereabouts through whispers and casual gossip. Turns out he moved back in with his parents, took a job in construction, laying bricks and hauling concrete. No more polished suits, no more carefully framed selfies, just work boots, sweat-stained shirts, and the bland reality of living under someone else's roof. The confident man I'd known had been stripped down to someone who arrived at sunrise, punched a time clock, and ended his day in silence. Their relationship collapsed just 6 weeks after their hastily arranged wedding. The rush of trauma bonding, the twisted intensity that had pulled them together, burned out faster than a match. When the passion died, all that remained was betrayal and regret. I understood it better than most. I'd seen that kind of emotional explosion before, bright, dangerous, inevitable in its short lifespan. I buried myself in work. My consulting firm grew faster than I ever expected. Projects that once felt like mountains turned into routine hikes, pitching strategies, negotiating contracts, leading teams across time zones. I flew from city to city, closed deals I'd once only dreamed of, and watched the income statements swell in my favor. Each new client felt like validation, proof that I could build something lasting on my own terms. After a year of long days and late nights, I tentatively re-entered the dating world. I matched on apps, met for drinks, tried to remember how to ask questions that didn't betray my caution. The first few dates blurred together, awkward small talk, forced laughter, stale wine. But slowly, I relearned boundaries and trust. Eventually, I met Emma. She was patient, curious, and carried her own scars from betrayal. She never pushed me to talk before I was ready, never judged the walls I'd built. We started slow, Sunday morning walks in the park, shared playlists on lazy afternoons, phone calls that lasted longer than necessary. No assumptions, just gentle steps towards something real. 2 years after everything fell apart, I found myself in a sunlit coffee shop with Callie, sketching ideas on a notepad. She nudged her latte toward me and asked, "Ever regret it? The whole revenge campaign?" I paused, stirring my own drink absent-mindedly. "No," I said finally. They needed to face consequences. I needed to stop being the victim. "Think you took it too far?" she pressed. "Maybe," I admitted. "Probably. But I can live with it. I needed closure." Callie gave a slow nod. "Because they deserved it?" "Because I deserved not to be powerless," I corrected. My pain mattered. The conversation turned bright when my phone buzzed. A text from Emma. "Still on for dinner? Want to try that new Italian place?" I smiled, typing back yes without hesitation. "New girlfriend?" Callie teased. "Yeah. She's honest, funny, kind. Everything Anastasia wasn't." "You love her?" "Getting there," I said, shrugging. "Slowly." "Good. You deserve happiness." We packed up our laptops, parted with a hug, and I drove home with anticipation humming in my chest. That evening, Emma laughed at a dumb story I told over pasta and red wine. Her laughter filled the small restaurant, warm and genuine. In that moment, I felt something unexpected. Peace. The revenge hadn't healed every wound, but it had given me proof I wasn't powerless. Betrayal didn't have to be endured in silence. I could fight back, enforce consequences, and then let go. A few months later at a conference in Boston, I saw Anastasia from across the lobby. We locked eyes for a second. Hers were wary, mine steady. I nodded once, and she looked away. No confrontation, no drama, just the silent agreement that we'd both survived. I walked past her, closed a critical deal with a new client later that afternoon, and flew home to Emma, to the life I'd built from the ashes. 6 months after that, a text popped up on my phone from Zachary. "I'm sorry for what we did. I hope you found peace." I stared at the message, felt the old tug of anger, then deleted it without a reply. Some apologies arrived too late. Some wounds can't be healed with words. His text told me everything. He understood the cost of betrayal, the weight of consequences. That was enough. 5 years on, I sat at a dimly lit bar when a younger man slid onto the stool beside me. His wedding ring caught the bar lights, eyes rimmed red. I ordered another whiskey and glanced over. "Rough day?" I asked. He hesitated, then shook his head. "Rough year. Found out my wife's cheating. Don't know what to do." I took a slow sip before answering. "Document everything. Talk to a lawyer. Protect your interests." He tapped notes into his phone. "Then decide your goal. Revenge, reconciliation, or a clean break. Be honest with yourself." "I want her to hurt like I'm hurting," he admitted. "Understandable," I said gently. Revenge feels satisfying at first, but healing comes from rebuilding your life, not destroying someone else's. He tilted his head, thought for a moment, then nodded. "Thanks. That helps." When he left, I finished my drink and reflected on how far I'd come. Would I do it all again? The surveillance, the sabotage, the calculated fallout? Probably not. The revenge had served its purpose at the time, but it didn't fix me. It only bought me space to discover who I could be after betrayal. I went home to Emma, curled up on the couch with a book. She looked up, smiled, and I felt that familiar warmth. I told her about the guy at the bar, the advice I'd given. She leaned against me and said, "You're good at that." "Maybe," I said. "I'm learning." She kissed my temple. "I love you, Nicholas Carter." "I love you too," I whispered, pulling her close. Lying in bed later, I replayed the past in my mind, Anastasia and Zachary one last time. I wondered if they'd found peace. I hoped they had, not because I forgave them, but because I was tired of carrying anger. They'd faced the music. I'd reclaimed my life. The sweetest revenge, I realized, wasn't in destruction. It was in thriving, in living well beyond the reach of old wounds, in waking up beside someone who saw my scars and stayed anyway, in building new dreams on solid ground. Tomorrow would be another day of living, just for me. And that, more than anything else, was the revenge they never saw coming. The panic attack hit me in a grocery store. 7 years after everything. 7 years of moving on and healing and building a new life with Emma. 7 years of pretending the revenge hadn't changed me fundamentally. I was reaching for coffee when my hands started shaking. Couldn't breathe, vision tunneling, heart hammering like it wanted to escape my chest. Emma found me sitting on the floor between aisles, hyperventilating. "Nicholas, look at me. Breathe. Just breathe." But I couldn't. Because I'd just seen someone who looked like Zachary. Wasn't him, different hair, different build, but for a split second my brain had gone back. Back to the surveillance, the sabotage, the cold satisfaction of watching someone break. The therapist I started seeing, a different one, specializing in trauma, had a word for it. Moral injury, Dr. Patel said during our 3rd session. It's what happens when you violate your own ethical code, even if you felt justified at the time. I was justified, I said. Maybe, but justified doesn't mean unscathed. You systematically destroyed 2 people, Nicholas. That leaves marks. I stared at the generic office art on her wall. They deserved it. Did they deserve everything? The homelessness, the career destruction, the complete social annihilation? Yes. Then why are you having panic attacks in grocery stores? I didn't have an answer. Emma started noticing things. How I'd check her phone location obsessively. How I'd interrogate her about late nights at work. How I couldn't trust anymore. Not really. Not even someone who'd never given me reason to doubt. "You're projecting Anastasia onto me," she said one night, voice tight with frustration. "I'm not her, Nicholas." I know. Do you? Because it doesn't feel like you know. It feels like you're waiting for me to betray you, so you can justify whatever revenge fantasy you've got planned. That's not fair, isn't it? You tracked down your ex-wife and her boyfriend like you were hunting prey. You spent months destroying them. That doesn't just go away, Nick. That changed you. I was protecting myself. No, you were past protection 6 weeks in. After that, you were just hurting them because it felt good. And now you can't stop thinking like a predator. She wasn't wrong. I'd become hypervigilant, paranoid, always looking for threats. Couldn't enjoy good things because I was waiting for them to be taken away. Couldn't trust love because I knew how easily it could become a weapon. The revenge had protected my ego, but it had destroyed something else. Something I didn't know I needed until it was gone. My humanity, maybe. Or just my peace. I ran into Jennifer at a coffee shop 9 months after the panic attack. She looked surprised to see me. "Nicholas, wow, how are you?" "Good. You?" "Great. Married life's been wonderful." She hesitated. "I heard you and Emma broke up." "Yeah, 6 months ago." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It wasn't working." Jennifer ordered her coffee, stood awkwardly near me while waiting. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Do you regret it? What you did to Anastasia and Zachary?" I considered lying, then didn't. Every day. Really? Not because they didn't deserve consequences, but because of what it cost me, what it turned me into. What did it turn you into? Someone who solves problems by destroying them? Someone who can't trust or be vulnerable because I'm always looking for the next betrayal? Someone who chose revenge over healing and can't figure out how to undo that choice? Jennifer's coffee arrived. She grabbed it, looked at me with something like pity. "Anastasia's doing okay, by the way, in case you wondered. Remarried, has a kid, seems happy." That shouldn't have stung, but it did. "And Zachary?" "Don't know. Heard he moved out of state, but honestly, after everything, most people stopped keeping track." She left. I sat there with cold coffee and colder thoughts. Anastasia had moved on, built a new life, found happiness despite, or maybe because of, everything that had happened. And me? I was stuck, still defined by what I'd done, still carrying the weight of choices I couldn't undo. The revenge had felt like winning, but winning felt a lot like losing. Dr. Patel had homework for me. Write a letter to yourself from 5 years ago, right before you started the revenge. Tell him what you know now. I stared at blank paper for hours, finally wrote, "Dear Nicholas, you're about to do something you think will heal you. It won't. It'll feel good temporarily, the power, the control, the satisfaction of watching them suffer. But it'll hollow you out. You'll win. They'll lose everything, and you'll discover that wasn't what you actually needed. You needed to grieve, to feel the pain fully and let it transform you into someone wiser, not someone harder. But you won't listen to this. You're too angry, too hurt, too certain that revenge equals justice. So go ahead. Destroy them. Prove you're not weak. Just know, the person you become in the process isn't someone you'll recognize. And getting back to who you were, or who you could have been, will take twice as long as the revenge did. Was it worth it? Ask me in 10 years. Nicholas. I never sent it, just folded it up, put it in a drawer. Some questions don't have answers. Some prices get paid whether you want to or not. The revenge was complete. The victory was hollow. And I was still here, trying to figure out what comes after you get everything you thought you wanted and discover it wasn't enough. That was the real ending. Not triumph, not peace, just the complicated, messy aftermath of choosing darkness and having to live in what it illuminated. No moral, no lesson, no redemption arc. Just a man who'd won a war and lost himself in the process, still fighting to find his way back.